Think you've seen every type of locomotive? Think again. What you are about to witness is a parade of the most bizarre, unhinged, and downright unbelievable vintage trains ever to roll down a pair of rails. We are talking propeller-driven railcars, jet-powered monsters, and gyroscopic freak shows that look like something a sci-fi novelist scribbled during a fever dream. Make sure you stick around until the very end because we have a steam locomotive so massive it practically bent the tracks beneath it, and a monorail that balanced on a single rail using spinning gyroscopes. Smash that subscribe button, ring the bell, and let us know in the comments which of these crazy locomotives you would actually ride. Let us roll. Number 1, the Benny Railplane. Our first freak show pulls into the station in 1930, just outside Glasgow, Scotland. Inventor George Benny bolted a cigar-shaped aluminum pod to an overhead rail, slapped a giant propeller on each end, and called it the Benny Railplane. It looked like a zeppelin that had given up floating and decided to commute instead. The true magic was that it could theoretically cruise at 120 miles per hour while conventional trains chugged along below. But it possessed a fatal flaw. Building an entirely new overhead network cost a fortune, and the Great Depression obliterated any hope of investment. The test track rusted away by 1956. Weirdness meter 9 out of 10. Looks like a flying submarine rating 10 out of 10. Number 2, the Schienenzeppelin. Just 1 year later, in 1931, German engineer Franz Krukenberg built something even wilder. The Schienenzeppelin was a sleek aluminum bullet with a 4-bladed wooden propeller bolted to its tail. It looked like an airship that had crashed onto a set of tracks and somehow survived. On the 21st of June, it screamed down the line at 230 kilometers per hour, roughly 143 miles per hour, setting a rail speed record that stood for decades. But it possessed a fatal flaw. A giant spinning propeller at head height in a crowded station is, to put it mildly, a decapitation machine. Scrapped in 1939. Weirdness meter 10 out of 10. Chance of mincing a station porter 100%. Number 3, the Union Pacific, the big boy. Now let us talk about raw, thundering American muscle. The Union Pacific Big Boy, introduced in 1941, is one of the largest steam locomotives ever built. 25 of these monsters were constructed, each stretching nearly 133 feet long and tipping the scales, with tender at around 1.2 million pounds. The articulated 4884 wheel arrangement let this beast haul mile-long freights over the Wasatch Mountains without breaking a sweat, but it possessed a fatal flaw. Diesel locomotives were cheaper, cleaner, and did not require a crew of grease-covered wizards. By 1962, big boys were retired. Today, number 4014 has been restored to operation and draws crowds by the thousands. Weirdness meter 7 out of 10. Sheer terrifying presence 10 out of 10. Number 4, the General Motors Aerotrain. Fast forward to 1955, when General Motors decided the future of rail travel should look like a chrome spaceship driven by a chain-smoking ad executive. The Aerotrain featured a bulbous finned locomotive pulling lightweight cars that were literally GM inner-city bus bodies bolted onto single-axle rail trucks. The true magic was its futuristic jet-age styling, decades ahead of its time, but it possessed a fatal flaw. Bus suspension was utterly useless on rails, delivering a ride so bouncy that passengers compared it to riding a pogo stick through a boulder field. Retired by 1966. 2 survive in museums. Weirdness meter 8 out of 10. Coffee spilling index 10 out of 10. Pattern break, the jet age. Obsession noticed something? Between the 1930s and the 1960s, engineers across the globe were convinced that the future of rail travel involved strapping aircraft components to locomotives. Propellers, jet engines, bus bodies, aluminum airframes, you name it. The aviation industry was exploding, and every railway boardroom feared being left behind. The trouble is, rails are not runways. The physics of a steel wheel on a steel rail are unforgiving, and no amount of chrome styling can fix a locomotive that rides like a washing machine. Drop a comment below and tell us which era of bizarre train design is your favorite. And if you are enjoying this freak show, smash that like button. Number 5, the M497 Black Beetle. Speaking of strapping jets to trains, behold the M497 Black Beetle. In 1966, the New York Central Railroad took a perfectly normal Bud Rail diesel car, bolted 2 J-47 jet engines from a retired B-36 bomber onto its roof, and sent it howling down ordinary mainline track in Ohio. On the 23rd of July, it hit 183.68 miles per hour. It is mathematically terrifying, but it possessed a fatal flaw. The experiment proved only that aging American track could not safely handle such speeds, and no railroad wanted jet fuel mingling with passengers. The engines were unbolted. Weirdness meter 10 out of 10. Melting the station awning rating 10 out of 10. Number 6, the Fairley double locomotive. Let us jump back to the 1860s when Scottish engineer Robert Francis Fairley had a brilliantly unhinged idea. Why not build a steam locomotive with 2 boilers, 2 fireboxes, 2 chimneys, and a cab sandwiched in the middle? The Fairley double was essentially 2 locomotives permanently fused back to back, capable of running equally well in either direction. The true magic was its incredible pulling power on tight mountain curves, but it possessed a fatal flaw. Maintaining 2 of everything doubled the workload for already overworked crews. Yet somehow, 2-headed Fairleys still operate today on the Ffestiniog Railway in Wales. Weirdness meter 9 out of 10. Charm factor 10 out of 10. Number 7, the Shay locomotive. Into the American forest we go. In 1881, logger Ephraim Shay patented one of the most bizarre-looking steam locomotives ever built. Instead of traditional pistons pushing wheels, the Shay had 3 vertical cylinders bolted to one side of the boiler, driving a spinning drive shaft with universal joints to every axle. It looked aggressively lopsided, like it had been designed by a committee that never met. The true magic was the gearing. It could crawl up a twisting 14% grade hauling trees the size of apartment buildings. But it possessed a fatal flaw. It was painfully slow, topping out around 12 to 15 miles per hour. Lima Locomotive Works built nearly 3,000 of them. Weirdness meter 8 out of 10. Bolted together in a hurry rating 10 out of 10. Number 8, the Baldwin Centipede. In 1945, Baldwin Locomotive Works unleashed a diesel monster so long it needed a special name. The Centipede featured a 2D plus D2 wheel arrangement, meaning it rode on 24 wheels with 8 powered axles. Stretching over 91 feet long and producing 6,000 horsepower, it was meant to be the ultimate mainline locomotive, but it possessed a fatal flaw. It broke down constantly. Crews joked that counting its wheels was easier than counting its failures. The Pennsylvania Railroad, Seaboard, and Mexican National all bought them, and all of them regretted it. Every last one was scrapped by the mid-1960s. Weirdness meter 7 out of 10. Reliability rating 2 out of 10, and that is being generous. Pattern break. When bigger is not better. Spot a pattern? Engineers keep assuming that if something works, small, making it gigantic, will work better. Big boy, centipede, aerotrain, all colossal, all ambitious, and most of them short-lived. The truth is, railways reward efficiency, not spectacle. The locomotives that stayed in service for decades were typically smaller, simpler, and boring enough that nobody made documentaries about them. The freaks we are celebrating today mostly died young precisely because they were freaks. Let us know in the comments. Would you rather ride a boring, reliable train or a bizarre beast with a 30% chance of breaking down? Hit that subscribe button if you love weird machines. Number 9, the Bullard Leader. In 1949, British engineer Oliver Bullard designed a locomotive that looked like a diesel, ran on steam, and behaved like a disaster. The Leader class was a steam locomotive hidden inside a boxy diesel-style shell, with sleeve valves, an offset boiler, and a fireman trapped in a sealed compartment beside a raging firebox. The true magic, in theory, was modern styling for an aging technology, but it possessed a fatal flaw. Actually, it possessed several. The fireman roasted, the sleeve valves leaked. The weight distribution was so uneven it derailed on a test run. Only one prototype was ever completed, and it was quietly scrapped. Weirdness meter 10 out of 10. Human rights violation rating 9 out of 10. Number 10. The Brennan gyroscopic monorail, and now the grand finale. In 1909, Irish-born inventor Louis Brennan demonstrated a full-size monorail car that balanced on a single rail using enormous spinning gyroscopes. It looked like an ordinary carriage that had forgotten how many rails it was supposed to sit on. Yet it refused to topple over even when passengers crowded to one side. The true magic was genuine gyroscopic stabilization, decades before anyone had heard of the Segway. But it possessed a fatal flaw. If the gyroscopes ever lost power, the entire thing would simply fall over. Sideways like a drunk giraffe, investors fled. Weirdness meter 10 out of 10. Tipping at lunch break rating 10 out of 10. So there we have it, 10 of the strangest, most ambitious, and occasionally most catastrophic vintage trains ever to haul, howl, or hover down a set of rails. What these incredible machines teach us is that engineering is rarely a straight line. It is a wild, bumpy, propeller-spinning, gyroscope-wobbling journey paved with bold ideas and spectacular failures. Every boring modern bullet train owes its existence to these magnificent freaks. Which one was your favorite? Drop it in the comments. Hit subscribe for more incredible machines and engineering stories you won't believe are real. Until next time, keep your eyes on the rails.